So thank you very much, Carl, for the warm welcome and the introduction. I would like to welcome all of you to my presentation, in which today I want to focus on formative and summative usability evaluations of medical devices, and hopefully answer the question, how do you identify use problems and take advantage of them? So my name is Benedikt Janny. I'm one of the managing partners at Using GmbH, a German-based agency, and here I'm responsible of the Usability Engineering and User Research department. And this is basically what I love. Just a small side note, what we are doing here at Using. So we offer a holistic medical technology development service for human factors, usability engineering, UX and interface design, specialized in medical devices, fulfilling the regulations according to the IEC and the FDA standards and guidelines. So for example, addressing the need of manufacturers to recruit representative medical test persons for usability testings, for user interface evaluations, and we design the user interfaces for physical and digital medical products. So today I want to give you some insights and talk about usability. And the big question is, what is usability? And I would like to reflect that question a little bit and give you a small usability challenge. So here you see like 3 cameras, number 1, 2, and number 3. And spontaneously, I would like to ask you, which of these 3 cameras has the best usability? So feel free to post the number into the chat. And I would say we take like 1 minute and see who's posting what. I see a lot of 1s coming up, some 3s. So it's a close race between 1 and 3. Oh, also some 2s coming up. Perfect. I think number 3 finally won, but it's really close to 1. So another 3 coming up. So obviously, even though, and I claim this now, that not all of you are usability experts, you seem to have like a spontaneous opinion about the usability of a device. Yeah, so let me add something that we call the context of use. So I want to give you 3 potential users of cameras. First goes up the child. Here's a quote of the child. So it's Maggie. She says, I'm 5 years old and I live with my parents. Thanks God that she still lives with her parents. Since my daddy is a journalist, I love to play journalist and take photos of my parents and cuddly toys. So this is a quote from an interview from Maggie. A second interview that we performed while thinking about the usability of those cameras is the paparazzi. His name is Josh. He says, I'm 31 years old and I love to be on the run. Since I was a child, I was fascinated with the life of the rich and famous. And to get the perfect photo, I often have to wait outside in the cold when it's dark or when it's raining. Or I have to take photos out of a car or while sitting on the backseat of a motorbike, so quite adventurous when he has to take photos and he faces a lot of environmental influences. So third user I want to come up with is the tourist. Yang Ying says, I'm 23 years old and I love to travel with my boyfriend. There are so many places I want to visit. So what brings me the most joy is to take photos of myself or with my boyfriend while we travel the world. So after all this information that you have now, if I ask the question again, yeah, which of those 3 devices has the best usability? I at least now expect you to maybe not have like a clear opinion. That's the perfect answer coming up there. It depends. And at the beginning of my presentation, this is what I want to tell you as a usability expert. When someone is asking you, which of these devices or products has the best usability, please always answer, it depends. Yeah. So exactly, it's all about the context of use. And we may never forget that we are not the user. So for Maggie, probably number 1 has the best usability, for our paparazzi, and number 2 has the best, and for our tourists, number 3 could be the best in cases of usability. Yeah, but you ask yourself, what does this have to do with medical devices? The thing is that one of the most complex and challenging contexts of use is a medical environment. So as you can see here, the range of medical products is enormous. So it can be, of course, like the first thoughts are within the operating room, within the operating theater. But apart from that, we have ambulance environments. So we might be in a rescue helicopter. We have medical products like rollators, walking frames that are used like outside in the cold, rainy environments. There might be mud on the streets. And we may also think about the whole home care market. So the self-injection devices that we have out there. So it's a very diverse, very heterogeneous use environment. And our job as usability experts, as people dealing with usability, is to get a really good understanding of those environments. And this is key to perform usability evaluations. So what is the significance of human factors and usability for the development of medical products? Basically, we can distinguish between 2 forms of usability engineering, which differ in their objectives. So first, we have the normative contents of the IEC regulations, the 62366, which is the basic standard for usability engineering, or the FDA human factors engineering guidance, which focuses on use-related risks. It focuses on the specification of the application, and the goal, the objective, is to minimize risks at the user interface due to lack of usability. So therefore, we have to perform formative and summative usability evaluations to validate that the use is effective and safe. But besides that, we have a second factor, a second dimension of usability, and this is the user research innovation potential. And here the real potential of usability engineering comes up as form of a market differentiator. So through targeted user research and innovation sessions, the real needs of your users can be systematically captured and translated into technical requirements. The result is a design of your medical technology products that is optimized in terms of user experience and joy of use. And this is our real goals, besides the basis that we need of effective and safe use. So how should one proceed to achieve the best usability results? The usability engineering process is closely linked on one hand to the medical technology risk process according to 14971 ISO standard. And on the other hand, we have the requirements engineering according to the 13485 ISO standard. So in between, but closely linked to both of them, there's something that we can name as the usability engineering process, which apart from the requirements engineering and risk management links includes the use specification and user interface design and user interface evaluations. And in a very simplified way, I want to walk you through a little bit, walk you through this process, focusing on use errors and formative and summative user interface evaluations. So let's start with the use specification, which may always be the basis, the starting point of your usability activity and human factors activity. If we want to get the information that is needed in the use specification, we may start with the intended use. The intended use has to be elaborated, and on that, as a starting point, we go on and may specify and analyze our intended user profiles and specify and analyze the use environments. So this is basically the specification of our context of use. This is what we call the context of use: the tasks, the users, the environments. So the objective within our use specification is to perform user research activity and get like a strong and fundamental understanding of the behavior of the tasks performed by our users and the needs that can be derived from it. So actually, at the same time, it's the basis for our formative and summative usability evaluations. Since without knowing what the tasks of our users are, we may not define our test cases, which are necessary for our usability evaluations. So we try to fully understand this context of use consisting of user groups, tasks, and use environments, and build up our empathy. Even though we are in a medical environment, I know it sounds strange, empathy and medical environment, but it's strongly needed. So we identify and understand our user needs and have a holistic list and view of the tasks that the users perform and the methods that you may use. Just a short overview. Today, there's not the focus on this user research methods, but I can reference to the other tutorial, to the other seminar that I did in the Sharpen Your Skills conferences. So look it up there. But we basically have like 3 categories. So we can try within the user research activities, we can ask questions, and we may observe. So try, there's a good technique called developer role play. We can use simulation techniques. Of course, most of the people, when they hear user research, have something in mind that we have under the ask category. So context interviews or online surveys, or we may also run focus groups. And I highly recommend observation, so video and audio recordings, and users may always be asked to think out loud during these recordings. And if you really want to go into detail, you may also use eye tracking. So when you completed this user research activity, you're ready for the second step. You know your user, you have a good understanding of the tasks and the user needs, and now you may transform that knowledge into something that is usable for your medical product development process. Since the engineers are not interested in qualitative interview content and emotions, you have to find a way to translate this qualitative data into a quantitative, specifiable way that you can give as an input to your designers, to your engineers. So how can we transform this qualitative data into quantitative specifiable data? And this leads us to system requirements and the user interface specification. So we take the user needs as a basis and we try to come up as a result with system requirements and user interface specification. So here is a short demonstration of a potential solution. Yeah. As we were talking about in the beginning, we highly focus on the context of use and we derive our user needs. So within the design process of a, let's say, high frequency generator for electrosurgery, one user need could be during the surgery, the surgeon must know if the scalpel is energized to perform a tissue cut. So with those first two steps, we are still within the problem domain. And now we do the shift into the solution domain by transferring this user need into a system requirement, which could be based on this user need. The system must display the current energization state of the scalpel to the user. So this requirement then is something that is usable for our product development and can be specified. For example, in a way like the high frequency generator has a status LED indicator that shows the energization status: green for on and red for off. Yeah. And now you see within this system specification, within this use requirement world that we are in right now, we have room also for innovation. So an LED showing green and red will definitely do the job, but we now can come up and take advantage of the innovation potential of user research and usability, and might evaluate, okay, are there other possible solutions like an AR glass, which is showing the status within a head-up display, whatever. But here is the innovation potential, and you should definitely aim at it at this point within your human-centered medical product development process. So this was a short excursus into the requirements engineering. When we come back, besides requirements, the use-related risk process is the core of the regulatory usability engineering. And here we are also approaching the term use errors that was part of the headline of this presentation. So what we do within this so-called use-related risk assessment, we elaborate hazard-related use scenarios, and we perform use-related risk analyses. So as you all know, risk assessment is key in medical product development. But there's a huge difference between like a technical risk analysis and a use-related risk analysis. And many people struggle with this since they are used to perform FMEA and calculate possibilities and so on. This is something which is quite difficult in the usability world when you talk with users and you just test with, in comparison, a small number of users. So how can we elaborate those use scenarios and perform a use-related risk assessment? As I said, huge difference between these two approaches, technical risk assessment and use-related risk assessment. I personally recommend to perform a preliminary hazard analysis in combination with a PCA method. And PCA stands for perception, cognition, and action. And on the next slide, I also want to show a little bit how you could do that. You know? What is a way to perform this PCA method and to use it? It is crucial to pay close attention to the definition of the hazard-related use scenario during the use-related risk assessment, since it is the basis for the selection of test cases for the summative user interface evaluation. So long-term short, at this point within your usability engineering process, in strong combination and close collaboration with the risk management team, you decide what shall be used for your summative user interface usability evaluation. So it is really key to do everything right at this point, since it has a strong effect on everything that is coming up afterwards. The PCA method, how does it work? Yeah, as I said in the beginning, it is needed that you perform like a profound user research in the beginning. First of all, to really have a clear understanding what are the tasks that are performed with your medical product. And when you have all of the tasks, the tasks are then part of your use scenarios. So a use scenario basically consists of various tasks that are performed within this use scenario. Besides, of course, the link to the specific user group that is performing these tasks, and of course the use environment where these tasks are performed. And now you might understand why I chose to tell you something about user research in the beginning, since here everything comes together. So let's take again the example of electrosurgical device, a monopolar high-frequency generator, as mentioned before. It's used in a laparoscopic operating room, and it's used by OTA, like a nurse assistants in the operating room. And now you take all of your tasks that you identified during the user research, and you start analyzing what is the user's perception during this task. As an example, we take the task connect instrument. So we try to address all modalities here. First, the visual modality. So the user sees the socket and the cable plug, as you can see here in the Zoom. Besides that, I also have a haptic feedback. So the user perceives the resistance of socket and the plug connection when he's plugging it in. But we not only have a perception level here in this task, but we also have cognitive actions that are going on. The user has to know which socket the plug has to be connected to. And the user has to know what the socket is suitable for. The user, has to know that the socket is suitable for a monopolar instrument. So this might not be self-explaining. And this is key for use errors. In this task, the action point is the most boring one, since the user connects the plug to the socket. And using the PCR method, you may, for this task, focus a little more on the perception and cognition. Since you come up in this connect instrument task with the potential use error that the user connects plug to the wrong socket. So you go on all of your tasks within all of your use scenarios, and you analyze all of those tasks step by step. You analyze the perception, the cognition, and the action in each task that the user is performing. And within a workshop environment, within collaboration of other product developers in your medical device product development team, you write down all potential use errors. And this then is an input needed for your evaluations on the usability engineering side. So basically now we have under control what is needed within the use-related risk assessment sector. What else is needed for formative and summative usability evaluations? Prototypes. Prototypes are key for our evaluations. So we now approach like the lower sector of the overview of steps that I was showing you in the beginning. The prototypes are like in between our user interface evaluation planning and the actual performing of the user interface evaluation. So we may pay close attention to create a high frequency of prototypes, depending a lot on the kind of product that you're building. So are you building a purely digital product, then you can make use of like digital prototyping techniques, beginning with paper pencil wireframes, and also, of course, software for interactive wireframing like Adobe XD, Sketch, and Balsamic, just several that are used, or Xsure out there. But you may also not be afraid to create physical prototypes using clay, using 3D prints, which are quite cheap by now. You can use construction kits, or also rigid foams like polystyrene foams. They're also very well suited to create prototypes, and then go into evaluations. And what kind of evaluations do we have in user interface evaluations? How can we assess usability? So as you followed me along the process, we are right at the bottom of the process, but still I may point out that we always have loops within the process. Don't think that it's like a straight line that we follow. We may perform several loops, and the loops are also key for our formative user interface evaluations. We perform those evaluations for two reasons. First, we want to optimize our product, become better, and second, we want to verify the risk control measures, and finally also validate our risk control measures, and make sure that the product may be used safely and effectively. So this is why we distinguish between formative evaluations, which primarily serve to identify potential for system improvement and shall be performed along the development process. And the final so-called summative evaluation is performed right at the end of the whole medical process. Let's take a short view into when, who, what. So as I pointed out, we perform formative evaluations in the first and second third of product development, and the summative evaluations at the end of the product development. And those serve, on one hand, sometimes to verify, and on the other hand, sometimes to validate the effective and safe use of your medical product. So here again, we have this strong link to the risk management. We have the link to the validation of the requirements that we derived. Everything comes together in the user interface evaluations. So just to give you a short insight, how can those evaluations look? They are usually performed in usability labs. They are filmed, like representative medical users are recruited, and then different methods are used, like cognitive walkthroughs, heuristics, or usability tests. Key on the summative in comparison to the formative user evaluation is to, as mentioned before, to prove the effective and safe use of the medical device. And even more important than in the formative testing, it is key to recruit like representative medical test users, and also to have a certain amount of use environment simulation. So the standards require you to simulate a user environment which is sufficient for the normal use of this representative user that you recruited. So this is the reason why they also are performed in those usability facility and labs. So time is running short. I could go on talking about these things, but to wrap things up for you, the takeaways. Try to follow the process that I explained to you in usability engineering. Start with the use specification. Make sure to research your users to have a clear understanding of the tasks they are performing while using your product. Then make sure that you derive user needs within your requirements engineering process from your user research and translate them into reasonable user interface specifications. Collaborate strongly with your risk management team. Pay close attention to identify potential use errors using the PCA method and assess your use-related risks correctly. This means that you should integrate a usability and human factors expert into your risk management process. Then design, produce as much prototypes as you can within your product development. Prototype is not something that should be done at the end of your production, at the end of your development process. It shall be started with right at the beginning, and a recommendation is to perform 2 to 3 formative user interface evaluations during your product development process, and make sure you select your hazard-related use scenarios based on a profound risk assessment, and also translate them into representative test cases. So if you want to learn more, you're more than welcome to join the Using Academy. Here I have the link for you on use-ing.de/Seminare. They are available in German and in English. And you are able to receive a certification to prove your expertise after those seminars, which are called Certified Human Factors and Usability Engineering Process, Medizinprodukte. And I would love to answer your question if we have the time right now. If you want to get in contact with me, feel free to directly contact me using this email address or find me on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Benedikt. That was a great presentation. Now it's a time for you in the audience to fire away in the chat if you have any questions to Benedikt. In the meantime, I mean, I know that you meet a lot of medical device manufacturers that you help them out. I always ask myself, if I'm a startup and I know that sometime down the line, I need to get in touch with those real users and get access to that real use environment. If I don't have any connections into that kind of industry, how would you suggest that I go about?
If you don't have any connections, or if you're a startup and don't have the money to really hire people doing that for you, just be self-confident, courageous, and I would just approach hospitals, clinics. Just go there, ask the medical professionals that are there, ask them for their input, and that you try to improve your product, or validate your product. And probably you will be surprised that a lot of them will be able to maybe join your evaluations.
Great. Do you think I should be ready to should I expect to pay them? Do they expect payment, these people, or how do I approach them?
Yes, normally it is expected for them to be paid, but this is really a interesting thing, since most, depending on the country where you are, but in most countries, those medical professionals work for like semi-public institutions that have like strict regulations how much money they may receive or not. So it depends really on the country that you are, how much you may pay them. And apart from them, you should really take close care that, if a medical professional is willing to join your evaluations, make sure to help this medical professional to indicate that he's going to take part in your validation, and that he might receive money to do that, since they are obliged to report to the job officials that they take part in such evaluations.
All right. I sometimes get the question about comparing the regulations in the United States with 62366. Is there anything that is particular for the regulations in the United States that are not necessarily covered in IEC 62366 that you think I, as a medical device manufacturer, should pay attention to?
I would say in general, there's big progress in this question, since those two regulations become closer and closer, and they start to accept the other one as equivalent. But the biggest difference still officially is that in the FDA world, you have to do your evaluations with US citizens. So there might be some exceptions, but this cannot be guaranteed. On the other hand, the IEC, for example, 62366 does not oblige you to test with German, French, US citizens, whatever. So this is a little open, I would say, a little more open. They simply say it shall be representative users. So they are not that strict regarding the test collective.
All right, so it's up to me to argue why the population that I have selected is representative.
Exactly. You should write a rationale and explain why you chose those users and why the test collective is like you chose. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Benedikt. I know that you have a really full schedule. Your expertise is wanted in other places as well. I'm very grateful that you took some time and talk to us and talk to our participants here today. Everybody, I implore you to go and connect to Dr. Benedikt Janny, so you get frequent updates on what he's working on, what he's doing. We will put this recording on our website and on our YouTube channel, so it will be available for you later. Again, Benedikt, it was a pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.